Fine, I'm not on yet, I don't think.
We can hear you, Miller.
Yeah, you're on, Jerry. You're on, Jerry.
My wife wanted to kiss me goodbye, so.
Welcome to the sixth meeting of the Budget Review Subcommittee on General Government, Finance, Personal, and Public Retirement. Please call the roll.
Senator Mills.
I'm here in my district.
Thank you. Senator Southworth. Senator Thomas. Senator West. Representative Bratcher.
Here in the room.
Representative Donahue.
Yes, ma'am, present.
Representative Graham. Representative Hart. Representative Koenig.
Here in the room.
Representative Meredith.
Present in the district.
Thank you. Representative Miles.
Present in my district.
Thank you. Representative Pratt.
Present in the room.
Representative Raymond. Representative Tate.
Present in my district.
Thank you. Representative Wheatley. Senator McDaniel. Representative Petrie. Representative Reed. Representative Gooch.
Here in my annex office in Frankfurt.
Thank you. Representative Miller.
Here in the 36th district.
Thank you. Representative Blanton.
Present in the room.
Representative Dossett.
Present from the 9th district.
Thank you. Senator Nemus, Chairman.
Present in the room.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody.
Mr. Chair, before we begin, this is Senator Thomas.
Yes.
I couldn't get my mute to punch in on time, but I'm present. I'm in my Senate district today.
That's fine. We have that. All right. I want to
Thank
remind everyone that is remote to put your computer or your phone on mute. And then anyone in the room, please turn off your cell phones. We do have a quorum, so I entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. All right, we have a pretty good agenda here. We're going to start with the overweight vehicles and Tom McDaniel, director. And I'd like to appreciate Secretary Reagan, because we were going to have her first, and she said that everybody else's time is just as important, so we're going to stay with the schedule.
Thank you, Senator Nemus. My name is Tom McDaniel. I'm the director for the Division of Motor Carriers, and today I have Mary Cook. She is our assistant director, and we also have Wes Young, our section supervisor. Mary's going to do a quick PowerPoint, so Mary Cook, take it away.
Mary, can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
There we go. Sorry, we are having some connectivity issues here in Frankfurt as well again today. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. As Tom had indicated, I'm the Assistant Director in the Division of Motor Carriers. We took the information that was requested, so I hope we've encompassed everything you've asked for today. If not, feel free to reach out to us and let us know, and we'll go back and get what you need. We're going to start with our mission here at KYTC to provide safe, efficient, environmentally sound, and fiscally responsible transportation system that delivers economic opportunity and enhances the quality of life. The totals, we'll start with that for the overweight, overdimensional permits that we issue. As you can see, I took the data from the fiscal year of 2021. We issued a little over 97,000 as a whole. I broke that down into trip permits and annual permits, and also our combination of amendments and transfers. We provide those to carriers in the event for an amendment. If they want to change information on a route that's going on, we can do that and accommodate them. It's a $10 fee. And also the transfers, if they have a vehicle that sometime through the years put out a commission on the annuals, we'll allow them to make a change on that at the nominal fee of $10. A lot of folks wonder what we permit, and it's actually anything outside the scope of KRS 189-222. So you could reference pretty much like cars, trains, or airplanes, anything that's oversized, from a house to a historical antique car that's headed on its way to be on the History Channel. You'll notice in the one in the bottom below that is a fuselage. Those two are actually pictures that I took when I was working a detail at one of the way stations. So you do see some interesting things that go through. On the top right-hand corner, that's the White House. So we did not move the White House, but one year we actually issued a permit for the Christmas tree that stood outside the White House. So there's quite a scope of different things that come through Kentucky and get permitted through Kentucky. On our trip permits, that's largely the ones that are done routinely and daily, with the exception of one of those, which is our medical commodity trip permit. Those permits are generated from a vendor solution that we started a little over almost 2 years ago. What that vendor solution does, it's a system that the carrier goes into and submits their information. It will provide them a route based on the information they have inputted. It ensures that they're clearing on their width, their weight, the horizontal and vertical clearances. So we've been very excited about that we launched a couple of years ago, and it's proven a lifesaver during the time in which we were in the pandemic and folks had to work from home. It really didn't affect their processes. They were able to do everything online, as the customers are now as well, largely. Our trip permits are $60 per trip. They're vehicle specific and good for 10 days. There's a map at the bottom, and if we have time, once we go through this, I'll go back if anyone's interested in seeing that. We have 3 permits that are not in our vendor solution, but what we did with those permits is we provided network maps for the carriers to help them through their process until we can get them incorporated into our vendor solution. This is just a snapshot of the dashboard that a customer is going to see when they go into the system. And again, this is accessed 24/7. The customers can purchase these at their convenience and pay for them at their convenience. They have 2 people working the system. If one may issue the permits or submit the permits and another person can come in and pay for it, it goes into a queue for them to go at their convenience and pay for it. It also displays the various types of permits that they can get from that system. The annual permits, the 2 that are highlighted in red are the 2 annuals that are still in our web solution rather than our vendor solution, but all of the others are incorporated. As I'd mentioned, they vary from $80 up to $1,500 in fees. And the one most issued, I would say, would be our AO1, the $250 one. That display there shows you the price of each and also the dimensions and scope of what each of those encompass. And moving forward in technology, like I said, we've got the 8 permits to purchase, and all but 2 are system generated. With the development of the 2 that weren't in the vendor system, like I said, we've got network maps that this carrier can go to that will tell them and help them come to a conclusion when they're routing their loads. And again, I can't say enough about our routing component. Prior to using this, the permits were issued manually, pretty much based on historical knowledge using an Excel spreadsheet. But this, it's taken away the guesswork. One mechanism that we think would be great for public safety and it would serve the Kentucky infrastructure is if we could get all of the annuals to actually use the route authorization tool that's out there on our system. Right now, they're not required to, but there is a tool out there that they can use if they want to just go in and kind of play around with some routes. It'll do that for them as well, and there's no charge for that. Whoever wrote 189-270, they did a great job as far as delegating responsibility, and that does put the onus directly back on the carrier. Makes them responsible to ensure that they're supposed to check all the vertical, horizontal clearances, the bridge weights, but we don't want to leave that up to chance. So again, the system that we use currently largely incorporates all that, and it ensures that, the carrier is going to go through the route that they've put in the system. What we have found historically, you hear about bridge hits and people getting stuck and everything, but I'd say over 90% of those from what we've experienced is because the carrier is off route or they didn't have a permit to begin with. So this puts the responsibility back on the carrier to make sure that they're doing their due justice by checking the route prior to permitting something. When you're cutting a piece of wood, what does it say? Measure twice and cut once. But with the height and on these measurements, we ask that they measure once and think twice if the measurement doesn't look like it's what they give. The system, we also developed a cushion into the clearances. A 3-inch clearance is minimum. So when they're doing measurements on these bridges, they should be allowing for that 3-inch measurement because the system does. In the top left-hand corner, that's actually a hit that occurred here in Kentucky earlier this year. The county truck just happened to be behind one of the loads that hit this, and they tried to chase them down, but they couldn't get close enough to get any of the information off the vehicle. The bottom, you can see the impact on that. That's not a Kentucky hit, but it actually hit so hard it shifted the entire bridge. So that is a big concern with Kentucky when it comes to bridge hits, and that's where our system comes into play. If folks are doing it the right way, using the system, utilizing permits, it's going to save, save something of this nature from happening. I did reach out to our bridge engineers because just as a remembrance that our folks that issue the permits, they're not the bridge engineers. We're going off data that's submitted into the system from the highway departments on clearances and bridge weights. This was information that they shared with me that they had tracked, and the cost only encompasses the construction only. It doesn't include the design or inspection or the in-house repair and maintenance on these hits. The first one is Kentucky 355 back in 2017, and these are just the ones that they've documented. I asked them if they'd done any studies on bridge hits, and they are actually in the process of doing that. So I don't know when that would be available, but that is something, if you're interested later on, we could probably reach back out to them to see if they have any kind of tentative date on that. The first hit was 355. That was a bridge in Owen County. And from these hits, I don't believe anybody was identified as being the one that actually did the damage, any specific company. The 355 bridge, a piece of equipment went through there that was extremely high. It bent the top of that bridge, so they had to go in and do some construction. That road was shut down for quite a while. Kentucky 652, that was in Gallatin County. And if you notice the next two, those bridges have actually been repaired twice from impacts and hits. And then you've got the most recent one that you just saw the picture of in 2021 on Kentucky 2692. And that was on the Henry Oates Road in Muhlenberg County. That was underneath the WK Parkway. And when we talk about our vendor solution, you hear that a lot. You heard that a lot in this program, but that's our saving grace. We roughly do about 55 or 60% of the permits are done self-issuance. And when I talk about self-issuance, the carrier goes in and we've set a parameter that we allow them to use to self-issue. And that parameter is very much the guidelines of our annual permits, up to 16 wide, 13.6 high, which is legal height, 120 long, and 160,000 pounds on the gross weight. Anything beyond that scope is still submitted through the system with our customer, but staff take the opportunity to look at it and make sure that they did actually choose the best route. And there's not any missing information that might interrupt with their permits or with their travel. Largely, the routes that we issue on are the interstates, parkways, designated highways, the roads that we know for a fact are 4-lane, the best roads they can travel, 80,000 pounds. We are looking at opening up the self-issuance standards and adding some more roadways in there. We've got 8 more that we submitted just this week. So that's going to expand the areas just a little bit more for carriers to go out there and use and to issue their own permits. We talk with other states that are in the MASTA organization, and those are all our surrounding states. And we were very impressed when we talked with one of them. They said that they issue roughly probably 90% plus of permits are self-issued. But during other conversation, I've also noticed that they also have a very high percentage of bridgeheads. So I think we'd rather be a little more cautious and a little more stringent on the self-issuance than worry about a bridgehead or consider someone might actually do a bridgehead. Now on our system, again, folks can go on there 24/7. Nobody has to be here to look at it. If it's within those parameters, they can issue themselves their permit. And when we talk about ancient history on our system prior to the vendor solution, again, as I'd mentioned, folks were using spreadsheets. We would hopefully get information from the districts in time that we could put a restriction in if construction was going on. This system's incorporated all of that. All of the annuals are housed in here. We've pretty much done away with paper in this section. There's no more faxing in. We don't even have a fax machine anymore back there, I don't think. There's no more faxing in. If folks want to communicate, there's a group email that they can send information to. If they want to send an application in there, they can send that in there and the staff will issue it. But we always try to reach out to the customer and educate them and show them how easy the system is to use and let them do that at their convenience. So it's done well for us. Did anyone have any questions?
Yes, thank you very much for your short and direct presentation. We have Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Cook, for this presentation. And I apologize if I missed the answer to my question. But when these vehicles are hitting our bridges and causing the damage, if we can identify who is doing that, are they being held responsible for the cost that it's cost them for the repairs?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Graham.
I want to ask you the question in regards to some discussions that have come up in the state government committee meeting and other committee meetings, which I attend, in regards to the number of employees who are working from home compared to those who are working within the agency. Can you give us some idea in terms of within your area of transportation, how many of those employees are working from home and how many of those are working inside the system, and the performance of those who are working from home compared to what it was prior to the pandemic?
Right now, with this particular section, they're rotating in and out, doing the 3 days in and 2 days out. I believe largely our folks are in-house.
That's
I
what I
think the tax branch may have some folks that are doing the same, rotating in and out. Well, with the pandemic, personally, myself and several other staff really never left. We have processes that include mailing out IRP plates for truckers, and we have to have folks in-house to physically do those. So we largely had about 30% in-house at all times, and now we're back to, I would say, about 80% full-time.
For those 20% who are still working from home, is efficiency and proficiency achieved?
It is. We, as I'd mentioned with the overweight, overdimensional staff, we could totally let those folks go home and work remote at this point forward. I believe everything that they do is online. Unfortunately, some of the other processes, there's checks that have to be processed through the tax branch for revenue that's received from the taxes and fuel taxes and a weight distance tax and certificate fees that will have to be processed. So largely, we're always going to have someone in-house to do some of the manual, but we did manage to have staff permanently in-house during the pandemic, and we did have a percentage that was rotating. So now largely, I would say, Tom, would you say at least 70% of everyone is back in and maybe 30% may be rotating in and out?
I would.
Do you have some form of evaluation that shows the level of productivity for those who have been working from home?
We do.
Compared to what they were prior to the pandemic?
We do. So for example, with the overweight, overdimensional folks, there are reports in the system that shows how many permits are produced as a whole and individually. We also have phone reports that we used because when some folks were working from home, we would have them taking care of incoming phone calls more so than paperwork. And it would depend on the duty. We would delegate it out, and we did have a means for tracking. I believe some of the staff even were required to send in reports at the end of each day as to the number of incidents they handled, processes that they completed, things of that nature. So the managers did a really good job of monitoring the system remotely.
Well, I just want to make it clear, I've never been opposed to people working from home. My only concern was efficiency and proficiency there. And I've talked to a number of cabinets over the last couple of weeks, and they have assured me that the efficiency and proficiency, which I talked about 2 months ago in a committee meeting, is there. As a matter of fact, productivity is higher than what it was when they were in the office. So I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to hear from the transportation cabinet because it's an important, all cabinets are important, but this is very important in terms of health and safety and the welfare of people from the Commonwealth and those who are traveling across the Commonwealth. So thank you for giving me that information. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I see no other questions, but I have a couple.
Mm-hmm.
So any vehicle that's going to be on our roadways overloaded needs a permit, and y'all give them the duration of their permit, and it includes the route and safety and width of the roads. Are these permits on file, and who can access that?
They are on file in our system, and it would be a matter of public record through the Open Records Act. If anyone wanted to look at a company in particular, they could look at their activity, request the permits within a certain parameter of time, or they want to look at them. So yeah,
if you see a truck or per se going down the road, shouldn't be there, or you think shouldn't, you have to ask for open records to see.
Yes, we could pull that for you.
Okay.
I mean, the general public would need to go through open
Now
records.
this applies, I know you show oversized trucks. This applies to a normal truck, say a pickup truck, a dump truck that is overloaded. They need a permit to go on a road that if their load is over the weight limit.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be a pickup truck.
I don't know, I put a lot in my pickup truck.
Well, a pickup truck
okay,
may need
I
an
understand.
oversized.
I understand. It's not oversized, but dump trucks are not oversized either, but they may have an overloaded weight for particular roads.
They may have, but it would depend on the specifics of the road and the axle configuration, usually dump trucks.
So they do need a permit if they're overloaded?
No, they should be legal on their axles. I believe depending on the commodity they're hauling for building materials, I believe they do have some leeway in the statute as to the particular roads they can be on. Because there's a statute in place that is a specific to building materials. And it gives them a little bit of additional leeway.
Okay, can you get me more information on that? We'll talk about this afterwards. Thank you for that.
Sure.
And who's responsible for the enforcement? I think we have the KSP down here, and you all also have your commercial vehicle enforcement.
Yes, they largely enforce those trucks.
What about local authorities?
They have the authority to enforce them as well. If a carrier is caught in violation of the permit, if they're not on the route, if they're over the axle configuration or the dimensions the permit's issued in, any enforcement agency has the authority to pull those permits, to confiscate them, to shut them down, to make them offload something or.
Now, Representative Blanton asked who pays for this, and it is the person that is at fault. How are we on collecting that? Have we done a good job, or are people get away with not paying, or have we done a good job of collecting?
I would have to check with our bridge preservation office. They are the ones that track that information. So I couldn't give you an honest answer on that, but I can check and have someone get back with you if we can find out any more information. I did basically ask them what the history was on these bridge hits and what they had. And that's when they indicated to me that they were working on a project to do some research on that data.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And next we have Shelley Hampton, Director of Government Affairs, Kentucky Association of Counties. And we're also going to have Keith Griffey with her. And I've been asked by our county judge exec, Jerry Summers, he wanted to be here with you all, but was unable to because he has fiscal court. Go ahead, Keith.
Oh, you want me to go first? Sure. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the opportunity to. Thank you. Sorry about that. I appreciate the opportunity to come here, and it's good to see my senator as the chairman. So I'm very pleased and proud of that. I'm here representing one of the fastest growing counties in the Commonwealth. We have unprecedented growth, both commercially and residentially. And one of the issues we have is in the last 3 years that I've been tracking this, in my position, I'm the CFO and Community Development Director for the county. In the last 3 years, the road aid that we have received has consistently gone down. Because of the growth, the road work consistently goes up. This past year, in 2018, we had 1.3 million that we received from the state. In 19, we got 900,000. Last year, we got right at 800,000, a little under. What that means is that our general fund from the county consistently goes up. This past year, we spent 600,000 out of the general fund for road maintenance. We've looked at this. It's one of those things that we have to fix the roads. We now have about 83,000. I still think that's an undercount for our county. We have 83,000 people. Senator Nemes knows better than most how much we are working on roads, widening, working on consistently trying to improve the roadways and the things that we have to do. And again, I'm just bringing kind of the real world perspective of this because we drive on them every day, and this is the situation. And I appreciate Shelley letting me take some of her time to talk to you all.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for allowing us the time. I know you've got a full agenda, so in the interest of time, we'll go as quickly as we can. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about this. Of course, if anybody's been around for the last 4 years, you know that increased transportation funding continues to be a top issue in every legislative session for county governments. With owning and maintaining half of all the roads in the state, that is a heavy lift. And as you just heard from this example, as the state funding continues to decrease, the costs continue to increase. And so the challenge here, not just with overweight, but overall, just wanted to make that point that we continue to have more and more general fund dollars out of our counties to have to go towards this just to maintain safety. You know, economic development is also important. And so there's that balance between the two as well. There are some statutes that allow counties to require bonds for overweight vehicles in particular. If we know those vehicles are going to be in the county, that's a challenge right off the bat. If the bond covers what that expense is, a lot of times they're not in there for very long, and so we don't know that they're in the county unless they come to us and tell us, or unless we've actually had calls from constituents to tell us there's a truck that looks like it's carrying a tremendous amount of weight. Is there anything that you can do about that? And so they have torn up roads. But again, that balance between economic development and safety has to come into play. We've also been left with subdivisions that are incomplete out in a county. That doesn't happen too often outside of the incorporated area, but it does happen, and that falls on the county to either complete that or find another developer to maybe pick that ball up and run with it. But there are some options that we have. Again, they are limited in scope. A lot of times they don't cover the actual cost of what we have to go in to do and repair. But I'll leave it at that. Be glad to take any questions, Chairman.
Thank you. We have Representative Wheatley.
Thank you, Chairman. And this is a very brief question for Mr. Griffey, and I appreciate the understanding that there sometimes is an undercount, and just wondering why you believe or you think Hardin County, I'm sorry, is it Hardin?
It's
Yes.
Bullitt.
Bullitt. Hardin's another
I
expanding
know.
one. Is undercounted in what way, and if you can expound on that a little bit.
I go back to, and I've been in my position for about 6 years now. Before that, I was in the private sector and worked in community banking in Bullitt County. I've seen the growth from that perspective. And where I think the undercount came was in the 2010 census. Started there. We have our north end, our Hillview. It shares a zip code with Southern Jefferson County. And I think a lot of our folks got counted in Jefferson. We also we feel like we had an undercount in Mount Washington, which we think we probably caught up a little bit on that. Mount Washington, I know there's different ways to look at those numbers, but the city of Mount Washington grew 98%. So if you look at the hard numbers, we're probably have the fastest growing city in the state of Kentucky. So that's where I believe, again, that's not an official, I'm not speaking for the county there. That's just somebody that lives there and sees the folks.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and this is not connected to our topic, but the undercount issue is out there right now, especially with the census recently released. So thanks for expounding on it.
Thank you. Representative Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question. When the subdivisions are built, aren't they required to have a bond?
They are. They are,
Okay.
but there have been occasions where money runs dry, things go south, and they walk away from it and leave it half finished, not completed.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate that. And we have now Brianna Carroll, Director of Public Affairs, Kentucky League of Cities.
Thank you, Chairman Nemes, for the opportunity to speak on this issue that impacts our cities. I am Brianna Carroll, Director of Public Affairs for the Kentucky League of Cities. City police officers can enforce our weight limits. They are the only city department with such authority, not our code enforcement officers. Chairman Nemes and I had a lengthy discussion about this the other day. Police officers are certified, trained officers that authorized to enforce the state law, including our motor vehicle statutes. However, enforcing our weight limits is nearly impossible task for our city police departments. There are a lot of exemptions to the current law. Our city police departments do not have the type of equipment and scales needed to weigh the vehicles, and most city police officers are not trained in weight enforcement. Our cities cannot pass an ordinance to restrict the height, width, length, or weight limits for trucks below those the state established in KRS 189-221 and 189-222. State Statute 189-280 does allow a city with a population equal or greater than 3,000 to pass an ordinance permitting trucks to exceed the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration weight limits. In that case, the truck can only operate within 15 miles of city limits and not on our state highways, connecting streets designated by the cabinet or county roads restricted by a judge executive. Some of our cities have passed individual ordinances to help deal with the problem of our overweight vehicles. Some examples would be the city of Edgewood prohibits trucks, semi-trailers, trailers, and vehicles that exceed 11.5 feet from operating in a city. The state allows cities to take that approach only if there is a city route that can go around the city. Other cities, including Florence, Moorhead, and Southgate, prohibit trucks from operating on residential streets or specific streets that are named in an ordinance. More commonly, cities restrict the specific route that large trucks can take to divert them from operating in a downtown area. Cities such as Danville, Hazard, Lawrenceburg, and Richmond have adopted that strategy, hoping to prevent damage to their own downtown streets. The city of Owensboro has designated specific large truck routes. Large, heavy vehicles can damage the city streets and bridges and add to an already expensive heavy maintenance issue. Governing.com pointed out that a fully loaded truck weighing 80,000 pounds, which is the interstate maximum, can cause more damage than a street with 5,000 cars. So for us, that toll is even higher, which it would be closer to 10,000 vehicles a day. Increasing the truck's weight to 90,000 pounds would result in 42% of a street's wear, and the pavement designed which is 20 years, would then go down to 7 years. For the past couple of years, we've discussed how cities face increased streets and bridge usage, decreased funding, and growing costs. Our city streets are already on a 40-year replacement cycle, and because of the lack of funding, nearly 3 times the industry standard. Overweight vehicles exacerbate the problem because city streets are not usually made for this type of traffic. They have fewer pavement layers than state and federal highways, which results in more significant damage. Heavy vehicle road damage further highlights a need to reevaluate how we fund our vital streets and bridges and how Kentucky distributes motor fuel revenues among local governments. But our cities maintain more than 10,000 miles of public streets that are more expensive to build and preserve due to the curbs, the gutters, Americans with Disabilities Act's mandates, and stormwater drainage requirements. Since 2009, our cities have spent more than 62% more on streets, but our state and federal funding has declined more than 4%. And in fiscal year 2020, our cities have spent more than $340 million on our streets. Our local governments are in a vulnerable position because there's no plausible way that exists for our police departments to enforce the heavyweight vehicles. Our research, since we were asked to present on this issue, has identified that significant deficiencies exist right now in our governments to really identify and enforce the overweight vehicles. And to guard our investments and our citizens on those transportation infrastructures in our communities. We stand ready to work with our policymakers on any issues that you want to address in legislation, while the General Assembly could consider any number of legislative fixes to providing greater authority to enact local regulations and utilize local law enforcement agencies to engage in enforcement is definitely worth exploring. We would also encourage you to examine current exemptions, additional enforcement training, fees and penalties, and the use of bonds. We could all use viable tools for local governments as we would partner with the state. So we are ready to be your partner.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Quick and efficient. I appreciate that. Are there any questions? All right, we'll go to Major Nathan Day, Director of Commercial Vehicle Enforcement, Kentucky State Police. Is he online?
Good morning, Senator Demas.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm Nathan Day. I'm the Major of the Kentucky State Police Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division. I'm here today to provide information on the questions that have been submitted to the Kentucky State Police. The first question was, who has the authority and or responsibility for enforcement of overweight vehicles traveling on our state roads? Any peace officer may enforce weight and dimension laws within the jurisdiction if they believe a violation has taken place. If the violation has occurred, any officer may cause the excess load to be removed and or cite the driver for the violation. The refusal to be measured or weighed is also a violation. While any peace officer may enforce weight and dimension laws, only KSP has the personnel trained, equipped, and charged with enforcement of weight and dimension laws as a primary duty. Because of the special training and equipment required for several decades, weight and dimension enforcement has been the responsibility of KSP. In 2020, 93.7% of all weight and dimension citations were issued by KSP. In 2021, 95.8% of all weight and dimension citations were issued by KSP. Due to a significant decrease in available manpower within KSP over the recent years, the amount of weight and dimension citations has fallen dramatically. In 2010, KSP was responsible for 4,204 overweight and dimension citations. In 2015, the amount fell to 2,664 citations, down 36.6% from 2010. In 2020, KSP was down to 1,758 citations, down 58.2% from 2010. In addition to sworn officers, KSP is authorized to employ civilian inspectors and other employees for the specific purpose of operating scales. They can issue citations for weight and dimension violations and other motor vehicle violations as appropriate. Kentucky is required, as a condition of receiving funds from the Federal Highway Administration, to implement and enforcement weight and dimension laws. KSP is required to complete an annual state enforcement plan and state enforcement certification to be submitted to the Federal Highway Administration, proving that Kentucky is enforcing its state and weight and dimension laws. If Federal Highway finds that Kentucky is not adequately enforcing the required state and dimensional laws, they may withhold 7% of highway funding for the state. In the fiscal year 2021, Kentucky received $727,368,318 in federal funding. If the 7% was withheld, Kentucky could lose $50,915,782 in federal highway funds. On the second question, who is responsible when cited? In almost every instance, the driver of the vehicle weighed or measured is cited because they are the person observed operating the vehicle in violation of the law. As with any other traffic law, the operator of the vehicle is charged with obeying the law while operating the vehicle. Enforcement against another party other than the driver is possible, but rare due to continuing manpower constraints because of additional investigative work required to charge non-driver entities with weight and dimension violations. For example, the shipper or the loader or the motor carrier. Significant additional manpower would be required. With additional manpower, KSP could resume proven and effective weight dimension enforcement strategies which have suffered due to significant attrition within our agency. On the question 3, who can file a complaint? A member of the public can contact any law enforcement agency to request an investigation of potential weight and dimensional violations. Typically, the best method of contact is one of the 3 CVE regional offices or one of our 16 KSP posts or KYTC or any other agency throughout the state. KSP manpower crisis is currently hampering our ability to respond consistently and effectively to complaints about overweight dimensional vehicles. Investigating these type of complaints is labor intensive, requires flexibility in scheduling, and our current shortage are making this nearly impossible. In closing, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here today and talk about the work that Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division does for the people of the Commonwealth. Throughout the pandemic, the officers and inspectors have kept the scale facilities open. Their efforts are a demonstration of their professionalism and dedication to protecting Kentucky roads and highways from unsafe vehicles and operators. On behalf of the Kentucky State Police, we would like to express our gratitude to Governor Beshear for continuing to make public safety a priority. We as an agency are sincerely grateful for the historic salary proposal for the law enforcement who have dedicated their lives to public service. Thank you for your attention this morning. I will answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Major. I really appreciate that. I see no questions, and you answered my question, but I want to reiterate it. Is most of the time KSP are out on the expressways enforcing this, but they try to be available, but with the lack of funding and lack of manpower, they try to be available for inside the county and cities when requested. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next subject. Now we have Employer and Apprenticeship Services, Secretary Mary Pat Reagan. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
You ready? Well, good morning, Chairman and Committee. Thank you for having us here today to talk about this critical component for workforce and education. Apprenticeship services is a critical component that we are focusing on, and it is actually a perfect week to have us here as it's National Apprenticeship Week. So I'm going to turn this over to our Executive Director, Michelle DeJean, who is the expert and that does all the heavy lifting in the apprenticeship program.
Thank you again. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, committee. I'm really excited to be here today. As Mary Pat had said, it's National Apprenticeship Week. We're excited to celebrate the work that we've been doing in registered apprenticeship across the Commonwealth. I'm going to give you an overview of what registered apprenticeship...
Please use your mic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This morning I'm going to give you an overview of what registered apprenticeship is and tell you the positive and the successes of registered apprenticeship in the Commonwealth. Registered apprenticeship is currently in the Kentucky Education and Workforce Development Cabinet, in the Department of Workforce Investment, in the Office of Employer and Apprenticeship Services. We are a small but mighty office. Registered apprenticeship is housed in this office along with other grants and programs to serve businesses of the Commonwealth. We leverage resources with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, along with incentives from the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, our assessment services, and the federal bonding programs. It's strategically placed in this office so we can better serve employers of the Commonwealth. And as an office, we are all about delivering the difference and helping businesses in the Commonwealth. Registered apprenticeship is one program that actually grew through the pandemic. So I'm going to share with you some of the successes and what we've done with registered apprenticeship. I'm sharing some actual pictures of actual registered apprenticeship programs and sponsors here in Kentucky. To give you an overview of what is registered apprenticeship is your grow your own, earn and learn, succeed model. It's often referred to as the original 4-year degree program. It combines both on-the-job training and job-related instruction. It results in an industry-recognized national credential. It develops a specific skill set for a trained career employee. And statistically, 94% of completions of registered apprenticeship, who complete a registered apprenticeship program, earn an average of $70,000. So I have our Kentucky state numbers to tell you where we are here in the Commonwealth. The return on investment is $1.46, but overall, everyone, registered apprenticeship is a workforce solution. It helps employers in recruitment, training, and recidivism. So it's a successful workforce solution. Currently, the Office of Employer and Apprenticeship Services is funding registered apprenticeship through 2 federal grants and some state funding. 73% of our program is funded through 2 federal grants. The first grant is scheduled to end June 30th of 2022. The second is scheduled to end June 30th of 2023, and we're always looking at our options for federal support for this program. Here are some statistics. Here is a statistical snapshot of registered apprenticeship in the Commonwealth. We have 594 programs with 347 unique employer sponsors, covering 585 occupations, with approximately 4,152 apprentices here in Kentucky. We are intentionally trying to provide education and outreach to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have here are percentages of minorities, women, and the veterans that we're serving. And for this calendar year, we have a completion of 572 apprentices. Here's the link where currently all of our registered apprenticeship programs are listed on our cabinet website. And we also work with the Department of Education's track program serving youth, with over 400 youth and 80 plus employers across the Commonwealth working in youth with youth apprentices. Here's an interesting map to tell you how I'm trying to, not me, we as a team, because I don't do it alone. We have a very passionate, dedicated team in the Office of Employer and Apprenticeship Services. Here's a map of where registered apprenticeship is in the Commonwealth. So to provide employer outreach and education, I know where our sponsors are, and I know where registered apprenticeship is not. So I have a team of workforce development consultants across the region who are providing employer education and outreach. In addition to having state-sponsored registered apprenticeship programs, we also have some nationally sponsored registered apprenticeship programs here in the Commonwealth. So the blue dots are where our state-sponsored programs are, and the orange triangles are nationally registered apprenticeship programs across the Commonwealth. Here's some successful information with the assistance of the Kentucky Center for Statistics. I wanted to provide you some outreach, or to show you the success or the progression of registered apprenticeship across the Commonwealth. I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger. Oops, no, don't want to do that. As you can see, completers have increased over the last 5 years by 264%. So 5 years ago, so even through the pandemic, registered apprenticeship has grown here in Kentucky. Salaries of registered apprenticeship completers range from $45,000 to $72,000. And then in 2019, the highest completers 1 year retention was 87.2%, with a national average being at 94%. So we're almost at the national average in our completion rate. And then after 10 years, 71% of our Kentucky apprentices are employed, making a median wage of the $72,000. As I progress, I wanted to give you some industry information on where registered apprenticeship is in our industries. Today, we have 408 apprentices in the healthcare and social assistance occupations. Apprenticeship in the utility industries is earning over $100,000 1 year, 3 year, and 5 years out. And then from 2015 to 2019, the number of completers have increased by 264%. So this just enforces and supports that registered apprenticeship is a solution for our employers in today's economy. as part of our National Apprenticeship Week, the Office of Employer and Apprenticeship Services is recognizing some successful registered apprenticeship completers. So we are hosting several online webinars recognizing the employers who have successful registered apprenticeship programs. We have several programs in the Commonwealth who have been registered apprenticeship providers for 75 years plus. So I'll be making site visits to those employers this month as well. So here are some of our successful completers from the 2020 to 21 year. Interapt is a successful program completer in the occupations of application developer, computer support specialist, desktop support technician. And hopefully you can see that registered apprenticeship is just not the skilled trades. It's so much more, and it's across all occupations. And they have 186 apprentices today. In the healthcare industry, Trilogy Healthcare Alliance LLC is is a very successful registered apprenticeship program addressing the healthcare needs of the Commonwealth, with 238 apprentices and successful completions in the last year. For variation, also, a top completer is Davis H. Elliott Incorporated, who has 343 apprentices in the power line distribution erector line, supporting infrastructure and broadband needs. So another showing the diversity of occupations. And then our other top completer of the program is in the Messer Construction, is a successful program completer in the construction, craft labor, carpenter occupations. And today they have 26 apprentices. So I wanted to show the committee the diversity in the occupations and how registered apprenticeship is very successful for workforce needs. The last is we're also implementing registered apprenticeship for our state's childcare needs. So with early care and education and need, we have registered apprenticeship programs in the childcare development specials and teachers' aides. We have 19 apprentices currently and 29 registered apprenticeship sponsors in Kentucky for meeting our childcare needs. I'm going to end today's presentation with how to keep and grow registered apprenticeship in Kentucky. I have 3 apprenticeship training representatives on our team of an office of 15, but 3 who are dedicated to registered apprenticeship and supporting registered apprenticeship, managing those registered apprenticeship programs, and providing technical assistance. But we are talking to new employers every week about growing registered apprenticeship in the Commonwealth. So I'm looking at possibly a regionally based additional staff for regional based or sector based specifics, but with 594 programs and 3 apprenticeship training representatives, their workload is, they're busy, but they're passionate about the work they do, and we support them in any way we can. And then lastly, for consideration, I've presented when I've been at previous presentations talking about possibly a state tax credit. I provided you a link to other states who are also providing tax credits and tax incentives for the Department of Labor's Registered Apprenticeship Program. So thank you again for having me. And in support of registered apprenticeship, we brought you lapel pins.
Which the chairman designed. So.
Yeah, the chairman did design those. So we'll leave everyone a registered apprenticeship lapel pin. So if you're asked about registered apprenticeship, if you could refer them to apprenticeship@ky.gov, we'd love to talk to any employer about how this is a workforce solution for them in today's economy. I'll take any questions.
Well, our staff actually designed them while I was there in charge of it. So I think everybody here knows how passionate I am on registered apprenticeship. And we have a question from Representative Pratt.
Well, it's more of a statement. I think your program, again, we're not a registered apprenticeship company, but I'll tell you, we actually have high school kids from time to time shadow our landscape architect that would like to go into that field on a regular basis, make sure that's the field they want to go into, and also prepare them for real life experience. So thank you for what you're doing. I support your program, but I think you have more companies than you think participating in this because, again, it's a workforce need without doubt. So no, it's more of a comment, but thank you, sir.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I have a few questions and comments. I think you probably expected that.
Yes, sir.
One is I like to shout out to Kentucky Stats. They do a great job for the state.
Fantastic.
And I think they're underutilized, but they do a great job. I know there's been talk about moving the apprenticeship program back to the labor cabinet. Can you real quickly expand on that? Is that
We are looking at all options to better streamline, be more efficient, and provide services to Kentuckians. But today we're just here to talk about the apprenticeship program, and we just keep doing the work as we move
good,
forward.
quick answer? Thank you. Now I know that you all transferred the employees from during COVID to UI for a while, so that also deterred what you were doing, correct?
Actually, the staff juggled their work for COVID and registered apprenticeship work. We actually grew programs during the pandemic, assisting with unemployment insurance and registered apprenticeship. So the dedicated, passionate staff worked through that.
I'd like for you to get back with me on that. I didn't see these statistics, the number of new programs and the number of new occupations, because as you know, getting a new occupation is really, really hard. And I'm glad that we're moving on with the nursing program.
Yep.
Very disappointed that our leader, Norton's, that we worked with to start that program nationwide, is no longer with us.
They actually are in hiatus at this time, and I'm continuing conversations with them about restarting or continuing or developing registered apprenticeship. And as for new programs, sir, I can tell you there are several occupations I'm working with because we are a state approving agency for registered apprenticeship for expanding. We have.
Well, let's set up a meeting with us.
Sure.
Talk about these two different things. I'd appreciate that. And then it's a good thing that we were trying to work within the state on our own agencies like OSHA inspectors and that to have apprenticeships too. I think that's something we need to expand on to do it in-house also. But one of the main things, and you did distinguish that you have 3 employees. You did have one for quite a while.
Yeah.
That was pretty much just doing the signing off on the programs. And now, we had I think we had like 6 or 7 when I left. So you're talking about something that Josh Benton, I don't know if you're familiar with him, was talking about, and we were going at it head to head on making sure it was done properly. On combining your workforce development staff with the registered apprenticeship. I caution you on doing that to make sure that one doesn't get watered down in that. They do have 2 separate things. So I wouldn't mind working with you on that if you intend to do that. So with the biggest question I have is I would like for you all to come to me and show me how you're utilizing that $581,000 that the General Assembly is giving you for 3 employees.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
Set up a meeting
And
with you.
is there any other, Representative Graham?
Madam Secretary, I'm going to ask you the question I asked earlier.
Sure.
In terms of within your cabinet, those individuals who were employed, who were working here in Frankfort, are you all still on a schedule where some are still working from home and some are still working within the agency?
Yes, we have a hybrid model, 3 days in, 2 days out, which we continued through the pandemic.
And as a result of that, how has, the discussion came up, as I said earlier, and my only concern was making sure that efficiency and proficiency was taking place. And in those cabinets that I have talked with, they have had very much success. And so I want you to expound upon how it has worked with the hybrid plan during this period.
We have done exceptionally well. We're able to pivot immediately and move to remote working, and we continue to do that. I am very fortunate to have an amazing, dedicated staff, and nothing has dropped. It's actually expanded. So we have that program in place, and we monitor that. If there was something that wasn't being done, then we would bring someone back in. But we haven't had to do that.
So it's been a success.
It's been very successful.
And that's what I want to convey is that as long as your agency and the other agencies across the Commonwealth are performing and are providing for the citizens of the Commonwealth, then I have no objections. My only concern was to make sure that that was happening. And I've talked to several of the cabinet secretaries They have assured me and provided me with information that shows that productivity is up, and it's also helped the morale of the agencies in which they have allowed that to take place.
Yeah, it's been extremely successful, as you can imagine, the amount of work coming in, and to be able to get that done in a timely manner allows people to, juggle their schedules and actually be more productive, doing the hybrid model. But if you want to see specifics, we can certainly.
Well, I
give
would
you
appreciate
those.
it if
Yep.
I could, but I know that the other cabinets which have provided that information have shown also, and the only concerns I had was to make sure that people across the Commonwealth were being served, but that our employees were also safe and secure in their workforce.
Well, I think that being out in the state helps you. I think being out in the state helps you a lot. If you have
Yes.
employees throughout the state,
but I'm glad that I've been able to you have been able to convey that to me as well, because that's what I've gotten back from the other cabinets that I've asked that question about. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I look forward to talking with you some more.
Great.
And thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Next, we have Lori Stewart and Kyle Hurwitz from University of Louisville.
Hello. Thank you, Chairman, and thanks to the committee for allowing us to present and share our plans for a Center for Military Connected Students at the University of Louisville. My name is Lori Stewart Gonzalez, and I serve as the provost at the University of Louisville, and I'm here with my colleague, Kyle Hurwitz, who serves as our Director of Military Initiatives. I'd like to thank Representative Bratcher for his support on this proposal to create this center. And I also wanted to share that the governor has supported this initiative and intends to include it in his biennial budget. The University of Louisville is positioned well to serve our military connected students. And I just wanted to share with you how we define military connected. So those are active duty, National Guard, Reserve, Coast Guard, veteran, dependent, and our ROTC cadets. The military connected students right now represent 7% of our population at the University of Louisville, and it's a population we want to grow. 20% of our students that are online are military connected students, and we have developed specific programs that allows those students to take their work experience and classes taken in the military to count toward a degree. At an undergraduate level, they can count up to 48 semester credit hours and a 120 credit undergraduate degree. And we have a number of tracks for them that were designed to take into account a military connected student's service to his and her country. We enroll more military students in the tuition assistance program than the rest of the 14 other Atlantic Coast Conference institutions combined. We're very proud of that fact. And right now we enroll almost as many military connected students using tuition assistance as the rest of all the Kentucky schools combined. We enroll 501 and all the other Kentucky schools enroll 564. And then 38% of our active military tuition group are from underrepresented minorities. And so that's 14% higher than the rest of our student body. So we wanted to create a center that would be a one-stop shop for these students. As we know, people that have served in the military have many different life experience than an 18-year-old coming to campus. And we want to make sure that that person can just focus on studies and get the support they need through this center. One of the other points of pride for us is we're one of few schools that charges the per credit hour that is provided through the federal tuition program of $250 per credit hour. And we do that for undergraduate and graduate students. So our students are able to come with their tuition paid at that $250 rate. We don't charge them a higher tuition. So I'm going to ask Kyle Hurwitz, my colleague, to share with you what the center is going to look like and what the services will be in our center. Kyle?
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. As Dr. Gonzalez said, my name is Kyle Hurwitz. I am U of L's Director of Military Initiatives. and retired from the U.S. Air Force, as you can probably tell by the pictures behind me. So this center will fundamentally alter how we address the academic, financial, physical, and social needs of these students. Centralizing services that are currently provided in a disparate manner will make it much easier for these students to navigate the higher education bureaucracy. The center will provide a single entity to fix, as I said, responsibilities that are separated across institution now. What we call stovepipes of excellence, meaning there are areas and individuals at the institution who serve this population very well, but they do it kind of in an isolated manner. And we want to bring all that together again, like Dr. Gonzalez said, to make this one place where the students can go to get everything taken care of. In a nutshell, this center will increase our ability to attract, retain, and most significantly graduate military connected students. And why that's important, like Dr. Gonzalez alluded to, is 38% of these students are underrepresented minorities. So that allows us to get more performance funding from the state. So it's kind of helping us help ourselves. And I think those were the highlights. So stand by for your questions.
I wanted to mention one other thing that we want to do in this center. I've talked to a lot of our veteran students, and one of the things we want to do is make sure that those students can translate the skills they had in the military to our workforce. And I think some of our intervention with them to show them the range of workforce opportunities for them while they're here will help them get into good paying jobs when they graduate. So we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And is there any questions? Representative Bratcher, would you like to make a comment?
I think this is thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you guys at U of L. And I think this is a great opportunity. I hope we can come through for U of L on this and help our military students, our future military students, progress in a much easier way. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing us to talk on this, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, no other questions. I have a motion to, yes. Second, anyone? We're adjourned. Thank you.